Thank you, Kevin, for being here.
Gal, thanks for having me.
You helped build this industry, helped lead amazing companies, and going building a VC again. We're biased, we're working, and it's been an honor and a pleasure. And now finally, we're back to the game,
Yeah.
which is super exciting. And it gets me to the first question, right? Like
Yes,
to ask about that. Like, given everything you've seen evolve, right, and where attackers are actually going next. What drove you to start Armadin, and what problems
Sure.
are you setting to solve?
Well, I'd love to say that I helped build the industry. The reality is this industry is built by the oldest professions: espionage, crime, right?
Yeah.
If you didn't have people that performed espionage, you wouldn't need cybersecurity. If you didn't have people that wanted to rob people, you wouldn't have cybersecurity. But I think we always have geopolitical differences. You'll always have spying, and quite frankly, you're always going to have wherever money goes, crime follows. So cybersecurity had to exist, and it was literally built by the adversaries that we're trying to defend companies from every day. And so now to your question, why Armadin? Why now? I've done the startup thing before, and we were talking right before the camera came on about, you said something interesting. You said, you're building again. Well said. And you forget sometimes, I had 3 years where I was bought by Google. Google's pretty well established, almost $4 trillion market cap. They still build, but when you're small, you build or you die, right? There's a higher risk, and that higher risk gives you a higher sense of urgency. A higher sense of urgency gives you a sense of purpose, right? I believe that. In fact, I would argue urgency is how you measure purpose. And boy, do I feel it. Like you feel it right now while we're shooting this video. We're the small guys building and innovating to change the future. And quite frankly, our livelihood depends on that, the velocity and the quality of our work. When the stakes are high, you innovate faster, and for startups, the stakes are high. So, and I like it. It's something that, when sometimes you're in a bigger place, some people like the scale of it. They like, quite frankly, the safety of it. If you're profitable and you're making billions of dollars a quarter, yeah, you take big bets, but you can lose so many and be just fine. You can't lose a lot of bets as the little guy, can you, Gal? So there you go. It's that excitement of knowing the margin of error is less, you have no air cover, you better get it right, and that sense of urgency translates to purpose. That's just how I look at it.
I love that. Yeah, it's this type of like war type CEO, right?
Yeah.
Like always like in this type of like war and getting everything. And I think it goes back to, we used to, and one really smart guy once told me like cybersecurity is this market that is a market that influenced by attackers, right? Without attacks,
Right.
without having attacks, like we wouldn't be here.
You
right?
got it. Absolutely not. If there was world peace and no crime, you wouldn't have to worry about it. It's if there was no terrorists, you wouldn't have metal detectors at airports. So it's just the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely, and it gets me to the next question again, as you mentioned, like we're the small guys that are building, right? But like with all the respect, like that's the difference from the big companies when they innovate, right? The pace is very different. It gets me to this question, right? Like you've seen everything, you see how the attackers evolved, and now we're in an era that attackers are innovating faster than ever, right? Using AI and zero-day and supply chain attacks and abuse, of course, like all of that AI accelerated attacks. So like, how does that change, I think, from your perspective, the job of the defender, right? What was the approaches that need to be considered, right?
Yeah, without a doubt, and Oligo is in the right place at the right time. You can't have a lot of humans in the loop. When you have AI emerging, you have technology for the first time ever that can think, it can learn, it has total recall. I think you're going to see AI agents that are as capable or more capable than intermediate attackers. And maybe even over time, vuln research will be done better by computers and AI agents than humans. And without a doubt, that may come sooner than people think. So what does that mean? Everybody's talking about shift left security all the time, but you've got to know what's in production, what's actually vulnerable. I call it almost like shift right. You've got to be not necessarily right of boom, but you got to have the attacker's perspective. You got to recognize that we used to have, the espionage and nation state capability, then criminal, which has gotten really close to about the same as espionage, and then, maybe less experienced. Everyone is going to be great on offense with AI agents. And I say the beast isn't out of the cage yet. We're at the inflection point where in under a year, attacks will occur at such velocity. They will be expert attacks. They may very well be 0 days. They will be bespoke to your organization. And if you have a human in the loop to figure out, is this good or bad, you've lost. And no matter how far you shift left, I've learned that vulnerabilities aren't always bugs. They are many times features. They are many times people leveraging a feature of something to get a desired command executed or to pilfer data. So I like that you guys do runtime, because here's the reality. You want to secure everything you can before you go into production, but you better know what's going on in production, because that's what gets attacked. And that's the biggest difference. Scale, velocity, and total recall of AI is coming at you. The certitude that you'll have an expert attack hit you will be 100%.
I love that. And
yeah, that's not a lot of good news.
Yeah.
But here is the good news. It is forcing defense to get autonomous, to think, to learn, to adjust to an emerging threat. I actually think we can have better cybersecurity 2 to 3 years from now. We're going to have a certain amount of gap, though, where the advantage probably goes to the offense based on asymmetry.
Yeah, and I love that, and I think you once mentioned that. I think we only scratched the surface, right? Like, I think the world was pretty shocked when, again, Anthropic uncovered the force and nation state orchestrated attack, or even like Cloudbot agents or hacking companies. But like, you've been on the front lines, you've seen those like real sophisticated attacks, from financially to espionage. Like I'm sure we were like still, not hearing like the real boom, but it's coming, as you mentioned.
So at my company, Armadin, we've built things that we haven't seen out in the wild yet. So we already know the art of the possible, and it's not great for defense. And I think defenders know it. You know it. We know it. But modern nations aren't letting the beast out of the cage yet, because nobody wants to deal with it, right? Because it's going to compress that whole, we prevent, and when we don't prevent, we detect and respond. Are you kidding? Your detect and respond better be in microseconds in the future, or you're just not stopping it. And we all know what happens when an attacker punctures the balloon, meaning to get in to your network with remote code execution. If that should happen, the inside is toast. In an AI age, it used to be a hand on a keyboard would get access to you and do one command at a time. In the AI-driven age, you're going to see 1,000 threads expand. You're going to see an attack that just keeps going. So you have to have a network defense or a cyber defense that can tourniquet in runtime. It's got to be able to stop the attack automatically. And even if it's not an attack, stop anomalous behavior. Literally, if it's new and different, just stop it. But you can't stop everything, and that's almost how we're structured now. You know what I mean? It's like the gate comes down and the whole town's shut down. Gate goes up and everybody's available. It's got to be it's like microsegmented. We shut this app down, this process down, this data store down. You got to compartmentalize it better. Yeah. So we're going to see better automation. We're going to see a world where offensive agents built by the good guys are training defensive agents to autonomously respond. And where you guys fit in too with that runtime inspection, you're exactly right. If you can detect at runtime something going wrong, well, you can stop. It may still go wrong, but you can limit the impact to nothing, right? Absolutely. And that's what's critical.
Absolutely. And I think you've been on the front lines seeing actually what is a complex modern attack even before the AI, right? And from your vantage point, like, what part of like the attack chain do you, like, as a market, do you think like we understand like the least today, right? What was the biggest blind spot and how it will be impacted now by this AI evolution?
I almost want to start with, what do we know is a challenge? Identity security. People can't fix it. It takes forever, and to migrate from Active Directory to other platforms and have source of truth tough. Go to custom application security or web app security. There's all these people trying to fix stuff. I think you're going to have a lot of tech debt from the older stuff. And then I think new stuff, no matter how well we craft it, somehow, some way, there's still a problem. Like you look at the companies that spend the most money on secure coding, like Microsoft and Google and Apple, they still do bug bounty programs, and they still have exploitation against them. And nobody's resourced like they are. You're looking at people, Apple pays $2 million for a zero-click O-Day. That means they exist, no matter how much you test.
Yeah.
Think about that. And these are smart companies, smart people, great processes. I've shipped code, and I've done everything I can to secure it. Like, we ran everything. We knew everything in it. And then years later, I'd hear, hey, we found a bug. And I never had a remote code execution. I had a privileged escalation one. And I remember going, how did that happen? And so you can see now, nobody really knows how much insecure code has already been deployed. The assumption by experts is, it's a lot. But the last couple of times we've done web app assessments for our customers, we and our customer have been surprised by how much exploitation we could do. Both sides. And it's because we're leveraging AI. So you know what's coming. And there's got to be a way, regardless of patches being available. You can't be thinking, we got to patch everything all the time. How do you do a compensating control for when there is an exploit? And that to me is going to be the art form of the future. That you don't need perfect to stop the attack. You just need to stop it. And there can be a compensating control, a shutdown of a process, a blocking, a segmentation. But it's got to be way more nimble than how we've kind of stopped things in the past.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, as you mentioned before. Like, we have to go to a future which is prevention first, and cannot have
Absolutely.
human in the loop trying to detect.
Yes.
It has to be real time. And
you got it. And that's why at Armadin, and you're seeing other offensive companies arise, it used to be you got new and novel attacks from Intel reports. Well, that's too late, right? and why don't we get new and novel from models that have been created to attack us and our apps, and maybe even be bespoke to us over time, learning our risk profile and things, so that new and novel comes from an AI agent to train another AI agent or another capable program to have a compensating defense.
No, the thing is, you said the Armadin, so going back to the building side, of course, you built companies and you led through crises and you mentor founder, and now when you go building again, what's your advice that you would give someone that just started building, and what he thinks are gonna have his head around with this changing world of technology? What technology can actually stand this test of time in security?
It's so hard to answer that question. There are no secrets. Every cliche turns out to be true. Hire slow, fire fast, and all the cliches are true. But what I've believed is a founder has to be great at what they do. Know your software, know your products, know your customers, be great. I do believe in security. Greatness prevails, quality prevails. If you are the best, word will get out. And I've always believed that. But there are no secrets. If you think 100% effort's enough, better put 110% in. I respect every founder, Gal. I really do. I don't know, I even look at you now, I'm like, I don't know how you do it. Every day you wake up and you got to go hunt, and you've got to do things that big company people never really had to do, because their livelihood didn't depend on it. They had air cover, I call it. They had comfort. They had a whole supporting cast. It's very different. There's nobody but you to grow your company. You build your team, right? And you do that, but that's why I respect founders. It's a special amount of energy, special amount of resilience, and I commend you for taking the plunge and doing it.
Absolutely. People I think look from the side and it looks flashy and so bright, but the reality itself is you deal 80% of your day with the shit and the hard stuff, and actually grinding and doing what is needed. And there's some fun part of something successful, but you have to go back into the reality and deal with what is bad.
So there's somebody asked me very recently, when did you know Mandiant had legs of its own? I never felt like it did. We even were a public company, and I never ever felt like it had legs of its own. And you won't. Every day you wake up, you could close a huge deal, and the minute it's over, you're like that starving actor. You're like, where's my next movie? It's where's the next deal? Because you're so worried about that social contract that when you bring people into your company, you need to take care of them. You need to take care of your customers. You need to take care of your employees, and it matters. People that come to work for Oligo need to get better at their profession, better at their time management. If they leave, they're part of your family tree. They represent how you trained them, how you taught them, and that's a good thing. You know, it's nice, like we're at the RSA conference, and every time I'm here, I get to see a lot of Mandiant alumni on that main stage. And you recognize we did a few things right, you know?
Yeah, I know it's one of the indications that something went really well when you have like so many founders coming from the same company. So I did something well, right? Like train the next generation.
Yeah, but you can only dwell on the wins for about 5 minutes.
Yeah,
right?
they're like,
woo, we did something well. Next problem, please.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And look, after everything you've seen right across the industry, like what's that one hard truth about cybersecurity that the industry still hasn't fully accepted?
You are never done on defense. It is an ongoing fight. You are in the ring every day. So many times the CISO's like, I've gotten there. There's always something else. And it's that constant duel. There really is an offense versus defense. There's a good versus the other side of good. You know, because it's always frame of reference between patriot and rebel, you know, depending on how you look at it. That's the real thing. You're never actually done. It's an ongoing combat zone. The cyber domain is a contested environment. You will always be in the fight.
Love that. And now this fight is getting to the AI world and the agents, and that will be exciting.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Kevin. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Good luck to you. Thanks.
Bye.